the Catholic priest, targeted by an expulsion decree from the Israeli authorities, has been involved for years in campaigns for human rights and the most vulnerable. It is truly ridiculous in my opinion. He was held up for 7 hours at a Tel Aviv airport after being denied entry by Israeli authorities, citing threats to public safety or public order. I don't understand why.
The Israeli occupation genocide war against Gaza continues into almost 2 years with no hope of an end in the horizon. Israel's war on Gaza has many patterns, including a ban on international journalists' entry into Gaza to cover what's happening, and that causes a lot of problem to journalists in Palestine and outside. In order to discuss the situation of Gaza and Palestine in general, I have with me Professor Giuseppe Pacciano, who writes for the European Affairs magazine and at the same time works as a professor of law. You are welcome to the program, Mr. Giuseppe.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Just days ago, the Israeli occupation committed a crime against the Palestinian journalists in Gaza, killing 5, including key Palestinian journalist, correspondent of Al Jazeera, Anas Sharif. And the killing of the Palestinian journalist has become like Israel's modus operandi. Now, as a journalist and a professor of law at the same time, how do you assess this situation? How do you see such conduct by the Israeli government?
Yes, first of all, the latest murder of a journalist in Gaza is a ruthless act perpetrated by the Israeli army, which aims to shut down all information channels about the ongoing massacres in the Strip. The 5 journalists were, in my opinion, deliberately killed in Gaza. To justify this murder, attempts are now being made to tarnish the memory of the victims. This is unacceptable, in my opinion. Journalists are considered the vigilantes of public opinion, carrying out an arduous task in the public interest by collecting and documenting evidence of violations of human rights and international humanitarian law, which could be useful in international courts to determine accountability. The protection of journalists has been the subject of attention by the Security Council of the United Nations, which has adopted several in the past years resolutions declaring that intentional attacks against civilians, including, I repeat, including journalists, constitute war crimes. For more, still on the protection of journalists during a war, it was established that the belligerents must ensure that the protection of media workers is not denied while they witness the armed conflict. Furthermore, still on the protection of journalists during a war, it was established that the belligerents must ensure that the protection of media workers is not denied while they witness the armed conflict.
Yes,
for example, yes, I conclude, sorry. In 2012, the United Nations Human Rights Council adopted the UN Plan of Action of the Safety of Journalists. I would like to point out that the law of armed conflict also intervenes by reminding us to respect the status of journalists who find themselves in circumstances of international war scenarios.
Yes, Professor Giuseppe, killing the Palestinian journalists by the Israeli occupation army, just one feature or one aspect of the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people, particularly in Gaza, because the situation in the West Bank is much different, really, when we talk about Israeli settlers' violence. Just today, I'm giving you an example. Israeli settlers attacked Palestinian farmers in the north of the West Bank, and when one of the farmers went to his land in order to see what's happening, one of the Israeli settlers shot him dead. This happened in the village of Duma in the north of the West Bank. So we are talking about Israeli genocide with all the elements of genocide. And this took the European countries and many countries around the world more than 677 days to declare their readiness or their intent to recognize the rights of the Palestinian people to statehood and independence. So how do you see this international political atmosphere?
Yes, your question is a very interesting. Well, because faced with what is happening through the horrifying images broadcast on television screens, that have touched public opinion in many European countries, and the protests that are spreading in many cities against the Israeli government of their arm, it is doing to the Palestinian population. The government of the Western of the European continent have decided to initiate the process of de facto and de jure recognition of Palestine as a true state. I repeat, as a true state. There is no doubt, in my opinion, as a scholar of international law, that the Palestinian people now respect the criteria set out in the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and the Duty of States. They are the people, and the Palestinians as the people, the territory, the government, and the capacity to engage in relations with other states.
Yes, and concerning the European countries' intent of recognizing the Palestinian statehood, if that happens, and we hope that it's going to happen because there is no hurdle that would ban them from doing that. It is the right of the people of Palestine, really, to be recognized just like any other people who enjoy their freedom and their statehood. But how can the Palestinians invest in that to end the Israeli occupation, to end the Israeli settlement building, and to have one contiguous Palestinian land?
Recognition, entails the initiation of a bilateral and multilateral treaties between the new state and the states that have recognized it as a part of the international community. Palestinians must commit to electing a new government and parliament, of course excluding Hamas. The election, in my opinion, must be held in the presence of the international and independent observers who will monitor the proceedings. Furthermore, the Palestinians must ensure that their future is democratic, respectful of human rights, and capable of coexisting with their neighbors, especially Israel. Two people, and two states must live in a lasting peace.
Yeah, but despite the international appeals, the international call, the European leaders' successive statements that Israel must stop its genocide, must allow humanitarian aid into Gaza, and must connect that with a political solution that would lead to the creation of the Palestinian state. Israel turns a blind eye to that, and today the Israeli Prime Minister had a video clip talking about the greater Israel on all of Palestine and parts of Egypt and Jordan. From a legal perspective, because you're expert of law, how do you see the situation? How can it be addressed? How can it be handled?
It is clear that in that land, Gaza, called Gaza, there is, in my opinion, a genocide, actually. And the genocide is a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
I think that, for example, regarding the Europe and my country, Italy, now, for example, decided to cut off any relationship regarding the weapons, or to decide. For example, Germany has decided just some days ago to stop the supplying weapons to Israel and other states. For example, as for Italy, our constitution is clear when it states that Italy repudiates war as an offensive means, but permits its use only in defense and in compliance with the United Nations Charter. Our minister, Crosetto, the Italian defense minister, calls for the sanctions that force the Israeli prime minister to think, and he adds, defending democracy in the face of a terrorist attack is no longer convincing. It is a different kind of project, the conquest of a foreign territory while risking a humanitarian catastrophe. This is the words very important by the Italian minister Crosetto.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, yes, tell me.
Yeah, Professor. Yeah, we heard of these statements, and some people in Europe are encouraged to impose a kind of sanctions on Israel, but they are not talking about a package of sanctions, as if sanctions are selective. Anyway, Israel does not take into account any of these statements or any of these moves by Europe and the international community. And I want you to comment on the Israeli decision yesterday or the day before yesterday of denying Father Nadino Capovilla access into the region. You know, this man is a respectable man with faith, religious, priest, and Israel defies the freedom of movement and doesn't allow him to get into the region. How did you receive this news?
Nadino Capovilla, this is incredible history, in my opinion.
Yeah.
No? Okay, yes, the Catholic priest, targeted by an expulsion decree from the Israel authorities, has been involved for years in campaigns for human rights and the most vulnerable. It is truly ridiculous in my opinion. He was held up for 7 hours at Tel Aviv airport after being denied entry by Israeli authorities, citing threats to public safety or public order. I don't understand why. Mm-hmm. Also, Father Nandino Capovilla has been involved for years in Pax Christis Bridge North Walls. This is an important Catholic association, recognized by the Holy See, by the Pope Francis, by the actually Pope Leo XIV. And for which he was also national coordinator against the construction and expansion of the wall separating the West Bank from Israel, thus turning it into a vast open air prison. He recently wrote, in my opinion, this is my opinion, he recently wrote a book called Sotto il cielo di Gaza, Under the Gaza Sky, which recounts the stories of Palestinians and injustices they have suffered, gathered through testimonies by officials of the UN Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. I think, and I concluded, I think that Israel first found out who he was and perhaps didn't appreciate the priest's stance on behalf of the people of Gaza. As for the Italian media, this is important. They have given ample coverage to this history, which has snaken public opinion in Italy. They are trying to silence what's happening in that land.
Yes, and Yeah, I understand that, Prof. Giuseppe. My final question to you is also about the European and the Western media. And it is clear that at the start of the Israeli genocide war, many Western media outlets bought the Israeli narrative, and it was not journalism really. It was like propaganda, and the Palestinian people paid the price of that. There were many victims of that because they trusted the statements by Netanyahu, Gallant at that time, and the Israeli journalism, which is very much on the side of Netanyahu and his political echelon. They don't act professionally, really, portraying the Palestinians as demons and as evil doers. So how do you see the performance of the Italian, European media vis-a-vis Palestine, Israel, comparing that between the first months of the war on Gaza and today?
Okay, as often happens with events of this magnitude, it's clear that the media are divided. It's the same, for example, the questions Russia-Ukraine. We have, for example, in Europe, also in Italy, two parties. The people support Ukraine, and other people support Putin or Russia, and also the journalists. And the media are divided in this moment. Mm-hmm. Each offers a version that may or may not favorable to one side or the other. The important thing is that the spotlight remains on the dramatic situation in Gaza Strip, where international humanitarian law is the final line beyond which barbarism reigns. A line that, if crossed, could lead to a new Vietnam. This is precisely what the international community is trying to avoid by pressuring the Tel Aviv government, not to cross that line of demarcation. I remember that the international law is always under attack in any part of the world, in particular in Middle East. But it remains the only shield against barbarism. And in my opinion, I concluded that it is necessary that the journalist, and I am a journalist, I'm an Italian journalist, I want to show the truth. The truth, it is important, and to transmit the message at the Italian to the Italian opinion public, that the situation, what is the situation in this moment in the Gaza Strip?
Professor Giuseppe Paciano, it has been a great honor having you on our program. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you for your invitation.
You're welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And from you, Saman Azal, have a nice time.